Hi everyone, very good evening and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So today we are going to start about bank credits, right? We'll be talking about bank credits and the different mechanisms of it, or what are the different types of it in detail, right? The data that we have presented over here has been taken from a credible source, and this is very much relevant for your preparation, right? So authentic source that we have for our exam is RBI, and that is why we have taken this particular data from RBI only, right? So we will be reading about it. We will be talking about the different, see, these are basics. These are basics with which we have to start. First, we'll cover these terms and terminologies, and by the time we will be ending these kind of basic terms, we would have end up doing a major part of introduction, right? So major part of introduction will be covered with these particular definitions. Now let us start doing it. So first of all, we need to talk about what is bank credit. Yesterday, day before yesterday, when we were holding up the class, I taught you that income goes on in order to create savings, right? This saving leads to deposit in banks, and these deposits are ultimately what is used to provide credit, right? This is something which is used to provide credit. And when there is credit, a loophole that we have ended up not discussing, business increases, and when the business growth happens, it ultimately provides you income. So this is how the whole loop goes on, right? So now let's talk about the bank credit. First, starting with a very basic definition. So bank credit is the aggregate amount. It is the total aggregate amount financial institutions, that is banks for us, they are willing and they are able to offer. So two terms are over here, willing and able to offer a loan or advance to an individual or organization. Bank credit is synonymous with gross loans and advances. We will be talking about these particular terms. What do we mean by gross loan and advances? What do we mean by net loans and advances? And it includes all types of credit facilities. क्या क्या तरीके की क्रेडिट फैसिलिटीज होती है? सो प्लीज आई वांट योर फोकस ओवर हियर. हम यहाँ पे क्या डिस्कस करने वाले हैं? वी आर डिस्कसिंग सर्टनली अबाउट टाइप्स ऑफ बैंक क्रेडिट्स. दिस इज वेरी मच इनटू योर सिलेबस. ठीक है, ये आपके सिलेबस में है, and that is why we will be discussing types of bank credits, where we'll be discussing about the different types etc of your bank credits. First let us see कितने तरीके के अलग अलग टाइप के बैंक क्रेडिट्स जो हैं वो दिए जाते हैं. फर्स्ट एग्जांपल वी हैव कैश क्रेडिट. नेक्स्ट एग्जांपल वी हैव द ओवरड्राफ्ट्स. Third, we have demand loans, right? Fourth, we have term loans. Fifth, we have bill discounted or purchased. Sixth, we have factored receivables. Now, please remember, ये जो list है, this is not an exclusive list. Exclusive list का मतलब क्या? कि सिर्फ इतने ही टाइप के जो हैं बैंक क्रेडिट्स नहीं होते हैं. अभी वी विल सी मोर ऑफ डिफरेंट नॉमेनक्लेचर्स. ठीक है, इसके अलावा एंड वन मोर थिंग, दिस पर्टिकुलर लिस्ट इज इवॉल्विंग, ठीक है, टाइम के साथ साथ इसमें जो है एड ऑन्स बढ़ते जाएंगे, right? So right now what we are witnessing is the 6 types of bank credits, but in future can we say that this is evolving? So this is going to evolve, right? This would be evolving. Now it includes, now what else the bank credit includes? It includes the money which is lent by the bank to its borrowers or the customers, interest accrued and due on such monies lent, debit balances in deposits account, amount of participation on risk sharing basis under IBPC, outstanding in credit card operation, interest bearing advances to the staff members, right? Any amount receivable any under special scheme by Government of India like Agriculture Debt Waiver Scheme 2008. 2008 में सरकार ने कहा कि आप किसानों का पैसा माफ कर दीजिए, right? To the banks, the government said that you please just waive off the money to the farmers, and the banks did so. Now, who's responsible for it? Obviously, your government is responsible for it, and the banks are going to receive about it. It also includes recalled assets like fraud related receivables and any amount of refinances. तो ये सभी आपके बैंक क्रेडिट का पार्ट हो गया. Now you see there are so many different terms and terminologies over here. You must be wondering कि इसका मतलब क्या होता है. Ma'am, you are just reading these terms out, right? But believe me, we will be including one each of these terms, right? Cash credit, OD, demand loans, bill discounted, purchased, etc., etc. ये सभी कुछ we will be discussing one by one. What do we mean by it, right? What do we mean by unsecured loans? What do we mean by other kinds of terms that are there in the bank credit? Now, see, these are the exceptions in bank credit, right? So bank, see, these kind of lectures are useful for the people who are appearing for the CAIIB exam, but at the same time, this would also be useful for someone who are preparing for the interview and they would like to have a knowledge about what are the terms and things that are there in the bank, right? So it is it is beneficial in either way. So यहाँ पे देखिए, what we are going to read about is we are reading exceptions. हम यहाँ पे अब exceptions की बात करने वाले हैं. What are the exceptions in the your bank credit, right? What are the things that are not included? Items which are not included in bank credit. Bank credit का मतलब क्या? Loans and advances, right? Loans and advances. Now let us see prudential write-offs, securitized loans, loans transferred to asset reconstruction, point number 3, bill rediscounted, point number 4. These are not part of bank's balance sheet, and at the same time they also do not form part of loans and advances. ठीक है, दोनों ही तरीके की बातें हैं यहाँ पे. Now we will be discussing one by one each of these terms. The first term that we are going to discuss is gross loans and advances. ठीक है, आइए देखते हैं इसके बारे में, इसका मतलब क्या होता है. Loans and advances is something that is covered under the definition of bank credit. ठीक है, बैंक credit की definition में ये covered है. Now we have to see that what do we mean by it. So gross loans, net loans, many of the times the students do ask कि इनके बीच का फर्क क्या है. वही चीज हम देखने वाले हैं. All outstanding loans and advances which have been indicated under the definition above of bank credit, they are called as the gross loans and advances. These are gross of all the provisions and netting items as specified under the definition of net loans and advances. See, we will see all these items, but first let's discuss this. What is gross loans and advances? और फिर प्रोविजन क्या है. ना मैं ये आपको बहुत ही इजी लैंग्वेज में समझा रही हूँ. दिस इज मींस there are layers to it, but we are doing this in a very easy format, right? Gross loans and advances less provision, and here we'll be having net loans and advances, right? So what do we mean by gross loans and advance? Gross loans and advance का मतलब होता है, suppose I have given 1000 rupees worth of loan. ठीक है, a person came up to me and the person asked about the loan, right? So I gave him 1000 rupees worth of loan. Now suppose after 2 years, 2 years have elapsed and the person has not paid me any EMI. ठीक है, 2 साल हो गए हैं और person ने मुझे कोई भी EMI नहीं दी है. Now how I am going to characterize that particular asset? That particular asset is going to be called as the what you can say a doubtful asset for me. अगर मुझे I am the bank, right? And if I have not received EMI onto this, let's say for 2 years, then it is a doubtful asset for me. Don't you think so? It is a doubtful asset for me. और जब आपके लिए asset doubtful हो जाती है, then as per the provisions of RBI, you have to make the provisions, right? You have to make the provisions. So for example, suppose I have made 800 rupees provision for it. ठीक है, मैंने 800 रुपए का प्रोविजन बना रखा है. Now what do we mean by provision? See, अगर आपको प्रोविजन का मतलब नहीं पता, please focus over here. What is provision? So in accountancy we have a concept, and that concept is called as the prudent concept, right? Concept of prudency. So prudency का concept आपको कहता है that if you can foresee a liability, right? So if there is a future liability, liability has not occurred yet, but there is a future liability. You can foresee that आगे चल के आपको एक liability होने वाली है. So in such a scenario, what you should do? You should be prepared for it beforehand. ठीक है, आपको पहले से ही उसके लिए पैसा इकट्ठा कर लेना है. You should start saving for it beforehand, and that is something we call it as provision. So when I save a amount, जब मैं थोड़ा थोड़ा पैसा future liability के लिए save करने लग जाती हूँ, that is what we call as provision, and banks have to do this. ठीक है, banks को ये करना ही पड़ता है, because see ultimately what they are doing a business, right? And in that particular business they are having a liability. तो इसीलिए यहाँ पे उनको जो है प्रोविजन क्रिएट करके रखना पड़ता है. So suppose if 1000 rupee I gave as a loan and I have not received EMI onto that, my asset has become a doubtful asset. I have created a provision for 800 rupees. Now what is remaining will be called as the net loans and advances. So what all we did in this particular thing, we covered the meaning of gross loans and advances, we covered the meaning of provisions, and we also covered the meaning of net loans and advances. Now let us see the definition. ठीक है, तो हम क्या क्या डिडक्ट करेंगे ग्रॉस लोन्स एंड एडवांसेस में से, so that we can reach to net loans and advances. You have to see that what all will be the deduction from gross loans and advances in order to reach the net loans and advances. Right? So shall we start? Chaliye. So that's what was written over here. See, all outstanding loans and advances as indicated in the definition above. अभी हमने definition पढ़ी थी बैंक क्रेडिट की, जहां पे उन्होंने हमें बताया that cash credit, overdraft, right, bill discounted, they all come in the purview of being a bank credit. ठीक है, तो ये सारी चीजें जब आपने किसी भी पर्सन को जो है मैंने किसी and the bank and I have given loan to my customer, that will be called as a gross loan and advances. Now let us see when we deduct the provisions and all other deductible items. ठीक है, जब मैं provision और बाकी सारे deductible item deduct करती हूँ, that is when I read net loans and advances. Right? That is when I reach the net loans and advances. Now let us see. Now in order to reach the net loans and advances, what are the items that should be netted? Netted का मतलब what are the items that should be deducted? Right? What are the items that should be deducted from gross loans and advance? तो हम अभी क्या पढ़ने जा रहे हैं? हम ये वाला पोर्शन पढ़ने जा रहे हैं, right? This is the portion that we will be focusing on to. What should be the deductions out of gross loans and advances in order to reach the net loans and advances? तो ये वाला portion जो है, this is now we are going to read in the points format. Now let us have a look. Let us have a look onto it. Just give me a second, please. Yes. Let us start again. So now we have to see the deductions. One by one, we are going to see that. Number one, provisions held in case of NPA accounts as per the asset classification. ठीक है, including the additional provisions for the NPAs at higher than the prescribed rates. So what we are going to talk over here, see, what do we mean by NPA? NPA का मतलब होता है non-performing assets. Non-performing assets. What do we mean by this? We mean that these are those kind of assets which have now they have stopped paying us EMIs, that is principal, and the interest amount is not being paid by them. So bank has stopped earning from these, and that is why these assets are being called as non-performing assets. इसके बाद में if if the loan that the bank have provided, it has stopped giving income to the bank, then obviously that is a liability onto the bank. ठीक है, इससे एक liability create हो जाती है बैंक के ऊपर. और when you can foresee, see, when you can foresee a loss, जब आपको पहले से एक लॉस दिखाई दे रहा है, then your prudency concept says that please create a provision. ठीक है, और यहाँ पे the asset that you have given as a loan is not paying you any amount of interest etc. right, interest वगैरह आपको नहीं मिल रहा है, then obviously this is a non-performing asset. Now what is the asset classification? So asset classification is number one, we have standard assets, ठीक है, जिसपे हमको सब कुछ बराबर टाइम से मिल रहा है. Then we have substandard asset, right? Then we have doubtful assets. This is the asset classification for the banks. We have doubtful assets, and finally we have loss assets. Okay, finally we have loss assets. Now this is the classification. What I want is that this should be your homework. Please go and read about it. आपको ये पढ़ना है, and I'm hoping that you are already aware about it. Most probably you are already aware about it. Even if someone who is just watching the video for, let's say, interview sake or for any other purposes, I would like you to read about it. And if you can't read and if there is something that you are not able to understand, you can just write back to us, right? Now let us move ahead. This was the first thing. So provisions जो आपने अपनी non-performing assets के लिए बनाए हैं, this should be deducted from gross loans and advances in order to reach the net loans and advances. Next is DICGC and the ECGC claims that have been received and held pending adjustments. ठीक है? So DICGC and ECGC, these are both your credit guarantee corporations, right? This is related to deposits. This is related to your trade. So over here, what this has been told to you, that if there are any claims, so those claims you have to see. This is for your deposits. This is for your trade, that is export. Okay, so over here, these organizations, what they do, they insure the amount. Suppose if I have deposited 2 lakh rupees with Axis Bank as a deposit, then my deposit is safe. Why? Because it has been insured by the DICGC. So अगर इस तरीके की कोई claims हैं, then those claims should also be deducted. Now, once that has happened, let us move to the next point that we are having. This is part payment received and kept in suspense account, or any other similar account. So, suppose there was a loan that has turned doubtful or lost, and you have done any recovery out of it. ठीक है, अगर आपने कोई recovery की है, then in that case you have to deduct from your gross loans and advances. Obviously, 1000 rupees loan was there. You have already done recovery of 500 rupees. तो अब क्या बचेगा? 500 ही तो बचेगा net, right? So this is what they are saying to you. This also meant that if you have received any claim from DICGC or ECGC on account of your loans or the deposits, you have to show it as a deduction. Okay? Next is balance in sundries account. In respect of NPA accounts, right? So sundries account, it talks about interest capitalization of restructured accounts. What is restructuring? Restructuring, see, sometimes what happens is, suppose if a borrower is unable to follow a specific loan schedule, ठीक है, अगर borrower एक specific loan schedule को follow नहीं कर पा रहा है, then what banks does is they do the restructuring. Restructuring का मतलब क्या होता है? Suppose earlier I was about to pay a loan in 60 months. Now I will be paying that particular loan into 72 months. So automatically the EMIs that I have to pay has come down, right? It will reduce. The EMIs that I have to pay, it will reduce. और इसको आप आप यहाँ पे क्या कह रहे हैं? Interest capitalization of restructured accounts. So if there are restructured accounts and you have capitalized the interest of those particular accounts, this should be deducted over here. Okay, in respect of your NPA accounts. Basically, what you have done is, see over here. Suppose as a bank, I have provided a loan of 1000 rupees to a borrower, right? Now the borrower was supposed to pay 100 rupee as an interest, right? Borrower was supposed to pay 100 rupee as an interest. But borrower said that I am unable to pay. मैं नहीं पे कर सकता, even this interest I am unable to pay. So what bank did? Bank said, okay, we will restructure. 1000 was your original loan amount. And we are going to add 100 rupees as an interest as well. So now your new loan amount is 1100 rupees, right? So what is the thing that you have done over here? You have capitalized the interest. आपने इंटरेस्ट को भी कैपिटलाइज कर दिया. दैट मीन्स यू हैव इवन टेकन इंटरेस्ट टू योर असेट्स. ठीक है, आपने इंटरेस्ट को भी अपनी असेट्स की तरफ ले गए हैं. So this is called as interest capitalization, and if you have done something of that sort, it is requested to you that you have to deduct this while calculating your loans. ठीक है, net loans and advance calculate करते वक्त you have to deduct it. See, if you have any further on questions, I'm hoping that you are able to understand it, but still, if you have any sort of questions, you are very welcome to ask those particular questions. Next, we have the floating provisions. To the extent the banks have exercised this option, over utilizing it towards the tier 2 capital. So I am keeping it for a later date, right? When I'll be discussing tier 2 capital with you, I will discuss this particular thing as well. अभी के लिए आप बस इतना याद रखिए that the provisions, that is any amount of savings that you have done, किसी भी तरीके की जो सेविंग आपने अगर की होगी इन फॉर्म ऑफ प्रोविजंस, you have to deduct from the gross loans. You have to deduct your provisions in order to reach your net loans and advances. Now, provisions in lieu of diminution in the fair value of restructured account of standard assets and the NPAs. Again, if you have classified some certain assets as standard assets, that means you cannot see any sort of losses in such kind of assets. But still, you have to, what you can say, you have to restructure those particular accounts, and for that matter, you have created provisions. Okay, so that is why these kind of provisions will also be deducted. See, basically मतलब ये होता है net loans and advances का कि आप हर तरीके की जो provisions हैं उनको हटा दीजिए. ठीक है, हर तरीके का provision जो है आपके account से deduct हो जाना चाहिए. Now let us see the next. We have discussed the net loans and advances. Now other type of bank credits, one by one we will be discussing, that is cash credit. It is one type of bank credit. What is it? So this is an RBI approved definition. Okay? This is how RBI has defined cash credit. So a facility under which a customer is allowed an advance up to the credit limit against the security by way of hypothecation or pledge of goods, your debtors, or the standing crops. Okay? The facility is a running account and the drawing power is periodically determined with reference to the value of eligible current assets. The outstanding amount is repayable on demand. So what happens over here is, see, मान लीजिए, it is also called as in businesses CC limit. So suppose I have a company called as ABC Private Limited. हमारी एक company है that is called as ABC Private Limited. So in ABC Private Limited, what we do is we trade in the pharma medicines. Right? We are into the pharma segment. Now I have a cash credit limit of 45 lakhs. And this is on the security of my stock. Right? So in form of collateral, you can give your stock, your debtors, right, or the standing crop, right. आप इनमें से कुछ भी जो है as a debt दे सकते हैं. This facility is a running account, right. So what is happening over here? ये जो 45 की जो limit है ना, ये ऐसे ही चलती रहेगी. I am using 10 lakhs, I am using 20 lakhs, right? It depends. But it would be repayable on demand. Whenever the demand is made for the repayment, I have to repay it. So this works like a credit card. ठीक है कि आपकी एक लिमिट है, you can withdraw and you can spend out of it, but whenever demanded, you have to repay it. But the one thing that is different from credit card over here is that it has security. ठीक है, यहाँ पे क्या है? Security है. A collateral has been taken. Now, next thing is overdraft. What is overdraft? So, a facility under which the customer is allowed to draw an agreed sum in excess of credit balance in their account. So, in my bank account, I have just 10,000 rupees. ठीक है, मेरे बैंक अकाउंट में सिर्फ 10,000 रुपए हैं. But if the bank is allowing me to withdraw 15,000 rupees, even more than what I have in my bank account, ठीक है, मेरे पास मेरे बैंक अकाउंट में जितना है उससे ज्यादा अगर मुझे यहाँ मिल रहा है, then this is what? This is an overdraft facility. You might have seen the banks offer such kind of facility in the Jan-Dhan accounts as well. Okay? वहां पे भी जो है आपको इस तरीके की फैसिलिटी देखने को मिलेगी. This is called as overdraft facility. It may be secured or clean. That means without any security. I want your focus on to the usage of words as well. May be secured or clean. That is, secured means against fixed or term deposits like small saving instruments, surrender value of insurance policies, etc. Or it could be without any particular security. OD facility might be granted on their current account, savings account, or temporary overdraft on the credit accounts as well. ठीक है, तो किसी भी सोर्सेज में जो है आपको ये फैसिलिटी मिल जाएगी. One thing which I want to tell you is all these definitions are as per the RBI. Nothing has been taken from a different source. Okay? I would like to keep my base as close to RBI as possible. So the next thing we have called as term loans. Now what is term loan? Term loan, it has a specified maturity. That is, time period is pre-decided. Time period is pre-decided and is payable in installments or in bullet form. They have maturity in excess of 1 year, should only be reported under this head, right? Term loans with maturity up to 1 year, they are reported under the demand loans. So, अगर maturity 1 साल से कम की है, then we call it as a demand loan, and if it is more than 1 year, we call it as a term loan. ठीक है? So these were the definitions that I would take. Now let us take the demand loan as well for today. So all loans which are repayable on demand, जब भी demand raise कर दी, like cash credit, like overdraft, like bills purchased and discounted, as well as the short-term loans with maturity up to 1 year, they are considered as the demand loan. Now short-term loans doesn't matter whether they are secured or unsecured, doesn't matter. They will be called as a demand loan. So what I would like you to remember is cash credit, overdraft, right, as well as your short-term loans, all are called as demand loans. We will continue this particular series tomorrow as well. I would like your presence, and if you would have understood something out of this video, then please do not forget to give us a thumbs up. We will be continue doing these kind of basic terms for the credit management, and these are not just the basic terms, these are the types of credit instruments. Okay, so this is it for today. Thank you so much for joining in, and please do not forget to like this video.